me and the wife, we was having a conversation about death. It's not a conversation that people would usually have. But nonetheless, we were having a conversation about that. That is something that a lot of people have fear for, and that's because we don't understand what death is. We don't understand that death is not something final, right? Death is not the end. Death is only a transitory period. That is a transition. So me and the wife was having a conversation about that, and I told her, I say, plain out of the blue, concerning certain things, I usually don't give a warning. So just out of the blue, I asked the wifey, who you think will go first? That was the question. And my wife was like, she kind of freeze a little bit, and she eyes well up with tears, just a little bit, but she didn't cry, because we accustomed having highly intellectual conversations, so it wasn't some question that would shock her, because again, we have conversations outside of the ordinary paradigm. And then she kind of laughed after, and she say, I think you will go first. And I say, in my mind, I say, well, yeah, I mean, it's possible, but I'll tell anybody out there, even if you have any conversation, not with your spouse, or you have any conversation with your mother or your father or some friend or a relative or whatever, I think it's a very healthy thing to talk about that, and to talk about the fact already proven in many ancient cultures that that is just a transitory period. So I think as individuals, if it is, we could have conversations about death, and we could understand that death is not a finality, and that death is just a transition, and that death is just for a short period, then we could become more interested in like ancient cultures and their perspectives on death, and how they view that, how they dealt with that. And then now we could sort of return to a state of mind where we could deal with death by understanding death as not a finality but just a transition. So in other words, blatantly speaking, we will see each other on the other side. We'll see each other in the afterlife. We will see each other in another time period. This is the strange nature of life, existence, and the human being, and that we don't really die. That's why if you understand science and spirituality from a perspective that you can explain, and you can understand as practical, it's easy to understand how that is something that you should not be scared of, and that is something that we should be prepared for. If you have to write a will, or you have to do something, put things in place before you pass away, or even if you have to talk to your relatives and let them know, listen, there's one day that I would leave this world, there's one day that I would pass away from this world, and therefore you should prepare by not crying, but by understanding the practicality of me being still alive on the next side, on the next side of the veil, so to speak. So I think that it would make us stronger individuals. It would make you into a stronger individual if you could have a plain and practical and frank conversation about death, and the reality that death is not a finality. That's something I always wanted to share, and I say I'll take the opportunity to share that with whoever is so inclined to understand the reality that death is not the end.